Hello, this is Mark Weaver, the instructor for business in a global environment. A very exciting course I'm pleased to be here to speak to you about today. I come to this course with over 30 years of experience doing business around the world in over 100 countries, both for the U.S. government as well as for the private sector. And I've also taught this course for many, many years in-class colleges around the country, sometimes known as international marketing, sometimes known as introduction to international business. What I'd like to talk about today is, first of all, I would like to hear from your students. Please take a moment and write down something about your background, your education, your job, if you have traveled or lived overseas, and if you are from another country. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. In the meantime, I'd like to discuss with you a kind of an overview of the business and global environment. And first of all, we need to define the business environment as defined as an environment that crosses different countries with factors with regards to the home environment and a variety of factors that we're going to discuss, including factors such as culture, language, religion, and how these factors distinguish the global business environment from the domestic one. Global business environment can be classified into the external environment and the internal environment. The external environment includes social, political, economic, regulatory, tax, cultural, legal, and technological environments. To function effectively and efficiently, companies operating internationally must understand the social environment of the host country they're operating in. Now, what does that mean? That means that they need to understand that although we have regional differences in this country between California and Texas and New York, for example, that when you go outside the borders of this country, you run into a different history, a different set of rules and regulations, a religion that's different, a language that is often different, and generally all those things that define what culture is, we're going to try to find out how that makes the difference. Now let's take a look at some of the comments by the students. At this point, I will collect the short paper, but I'd like to see comments posted on the public forum. And by the way, I see some of the comments are very interesting. I see that one of the students is originally from Hong Kong and came here with their parents as immigrants to San Francisco and subsequently moved to Texas. I see another person who is working in a company with regards to international freight. Now, how would the factor of transportation differ between domestic and overseas? That's a question that we need to pose. How would the crossing different borders and the different laws with regards to import, export, and customs and Homeland Security affect the export of U.S. products? Is doing business actually both exporting as well as importing, or are we doing business internationally when we're importing? Anyway, these are some of the ideas that we'll be discussing in this class. I wanted to go over the table of contents real quickly. The first, we're doing the overview. We're going to talk about the process of globalization in part one. In part two, we're kind of talking about the economic, political environment, the political environment in emerging developing countries, and the political environment in well-developed countries. And in part three, we're going to talk about social, cultural in developing countries and in developing and emerging countries, sometimes often synonymous, and social and cultural environment in developed countries. Part 4 will look at the overview of technology and the influence of the internet on business. I don't want to get too far ahead of us. There'll be a combination of regular discussion, questions that I will ask you, questions that I want you to ask me, though questions that you will be discussing amongst yourself, sometimes in paired groups. There will also be, and I will provide you in the syllabus information with regards to how I will grade the discussion. As this is a very fast-paced 6-week course, we will have a quiz every week, and then a final final test at the end of the last week of the course. Excuse me, I'm getting over a bad cold. I will expect you to read the chapters that will be assigned. There'll be approximately 3 to 4 chapters per week. I will have some outside sources to take a look at. The United States Department of Commerce has a very good website, export.gov, the CIA World Factbook, the State Department, and if we have time to get into export, the financing of exports, we'll talk about the Export-Import Bank and to some extent the Small Business Administration, which are both agencies that I used to work with very closely while I was employed as a senior international specialist, a trade specialist with the U.S. Department of Commerce for many, many years. I worked in Washington. I worked in Los Angeles, in Seattle, Spokane. I worked in Central America, Bogota, Colombia, Moscow, and then I had numerous TDYs, which is a military term for short-term duty assignments in Europe, Mexico, South America, South Africa, and Singapore. And I retired at the end of at the end of 2011. If you have any questions for me at this point, please shoot me emails through the forum and or to my personal email, Marco, M-A-R-C-O, 1496 at gmail.com, and I will be providing you with the Baker email shortly. Anyway, I'm very excited to teach this course. I think there's another thing that I want you to be aware of is that we should be keeping up with the news, whether we read it off the internet or whether we listen to the nightly news, the BBC, some of the financial MSN and some of the other, Bloomberg. Also, we do a fairly good reporting on terms of what I would call trade and investment in the global economy. So, and that will be in the syllabus as references that I will make to you with regards to how you can enhance your knowledge of doing business or business in the global environment. A very important subject, somewhat complicated sometimes by geopolitical affairs, but nevertheless, and often sometimes used as leverage presently, maybe in the situation with the Crimean situation with President Putin of Russia and what President Obama and Europe may be looking at in terms of leveraging economic and trade sanctions. So, but for the most part, and we will look at a variety of instances where that's been used. But for the most part, this course will focus on the positive aspects of how business in the global environment is something that's very positive, that we can enhance our economy, enhance our knowledge of the world, and also for those of us who are looking to do a career in this or think about a career. So thank you very much for now, and I look forward to being your instructor of record for the course on business in the global environment.